Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. It is episode 27. We are back after a hectic week of Tottenham football, to say the least. Going to dive into all kinds of topics this afternoon. But before we do, want to introduce the panel quickly. As always, my co-host, you know by now, Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. Just another terrible week for Tottenham. So, it just keeps happening every other week, and kind of getting tired of it at this point. So, yeah.
It's the roller coaster that is being a Spurs supporter in these early Ange Postecoglou days, no doubt. With Max and I becoming quite a regular member of the panel here, Robbie at Robbie_light. Robbie, what's up, man?
Yeah, not too much. Long Thanksgiving weekend. You guys already know this, but like I said, got really intoxicated Saturday night and slept through the Fulham game, but sounds like I didn't miss much. But don't have a lot of tactical things to contribute there. But yeah, I was on Thanksgiving Day, was definitely watching the Roma match while I wasn't making turkey, but I was making some other random stuff. But yeah, long weekend, and I wish it was still the weekend. I hate starting over and going back to work on days like this, but here we are.
Yeah, Monday after a 4 days off is pretty brutal. But yeah, like you said, there was a match against Fulham, but before that, there was a match against Roma. We're going to talk about both of them. Let's start with Roma. Max, I'm going to come to you. The lineup, I think, was fairly predictable considering the situation. We'll post it here at the bottom for the viewers. Spurs 2, Roma 2, but walk me through that lineup. Anything interesting pop off to you?
I mean, we had a much better lineup in this game than we did against Fulham, so I guess that's one thing to cite. Like, I don't know if that's the correct decision there from Ange, but I mean, I guess I can't complain. The frustrating part is that despite that, we still didn't win either of those games. So it's like, come on, guys. Like, we got to get it done. One of those, and then to rest players like Kulusevski, I guess Solanke got sick, but it's just, I don't know. That lineup should easily be beating Roma. And I'm not going to stick this one on Ange because we didn't finish our chances at all in this game. That goes for Solanke especially. Son had one big miss. And then I also think that, like, we just don't know how to handle a lead at all. And that's partially Ange's fault as well. But it's mostly on the players here. Like, we're just so panicked every time we get a lead. It's just so hectic. There's players are few and far between that are actually calm on the ball. Like Basuma stuck out to me this game as like one of the only players who was willing to like sit on the ball and actually like take the sting out of the game when we're only up one goal and everyone else is just kicking it and like trying to go like just chill out. And then that also falls on Ange, who doesn't make subs in a timely manner and doesn't try and like break up the momentum of Roma, who before their goal in the 91st minute had, I don't know, 15 straight minutes in our box that went by with no subs. Not like a single moment of like maybe fake an injury. Just do something to like stop the momentum. Like, they could have scored 4 times during that sequence. So it's just like we don't know how to win, man. Like, you don't know how to win. We can only win by 4 goals, I guess. We can't win by 1. And it's just so frustrating at this point. So that was what stuck out to me in that game. The Fulham game, there was a lot more different things that happened, I think, tactically, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and we'll get to Fulham here momentarily.
But I think tactically we should have won this game, and the players didn't get it done. But yeah.
No, I agree with that, and I won't hold any punches here. Roma is fucking terrible. They're absolutely in the mud. They're quickly finding themselves in a relegation battle in the Serie A, which is unthinkable for that club. I mean, they've only got 2 Scudettos in their history, right? So I'm not going to pretend that they're just like behemoth serial winners in Italy, but they have won the league twice. But that organization is very important to the city of Rome, and they have high expectations as an organization. And again, they're finding themselves, after getting waxed by Atalanta today, in a relegation battle as the Serie A season progresses. So yeah, Roma's tough, in tough shape for sure, and Spurs should be beating them. No question about it, especially when you consider that we conceded a goal in, I believe, the 93rd minute, if I'm not mistaken, right? In the 91st minute, rather, to Mats Hummels. Credit to him, fantastic footballer who reads the game really well, right? But that's not somebody who's allowed to concede. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Barely played this season, by the way.
Barely at all. He's only come in with Ranieri's arrival, essentially. Roma's rough. Robbie, I'll come to you. I think, some of what Max said in there was that Spurs have a hard time playing with the lead and controlling the lead, and I wholeheartily agree with that. It seems that we do better when we go down a goal, and then we scramble and start to play more direct and purposeful football. And it seems like we do kind of run around with our heads cut off sometimes when we have a lead. Do you think there's anything to that?
Probably. I mean, I think I didn't even want to say it in the text because I was like, I'm going to jinx it. But of course, it doesn't matter with Tottenham. But going into halftime, it should have been 4-1 Spurs. Like we had that Son one was ridiculous. Like I said in the chat, I was like, if that was Timo Werner, I can only imagine the things that would have been said in this chat.
I just want to say, like, how many times has Son done that? That's the thing. Like, Timo does that every other day.
Yeah.
Son, it's once in a blue moon. I forgive him, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And at this point, I don't remember, but I know we hit at least 2 posts in the match, if not more. And I think they were in the first half. Like, it was like we should have had at least 4. And I was just like, what I wanted to say was, we're going to wish we had those in the fucking 89th minute, aren't we? Like, this is just going to come back and bite us.
Go under the wall that game, or was that against Fulham?
That was Fulham.
Okay, it's all blurring together right now.
Yeah, but there was a lot of chances there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, and Ange kind of went on the offensive with the press again on this of like, that was the joke that I said in the chat too, where he mentioned something like, well, don't you want it to be entertaining, mate? Like when he's being sarcastic as hell, but when you read it, you think he's being out of touch, but he's actually just telling the reporters, you're stupid, you don't know soccer. Is kind of what the tone there is. But yeah, like, obviously he never wants to park the bus. He's never someone that will ever park the bus. He believes in being exciting and being whatever. And, that's what the media is getting louder and louder about, of like, this is the Premier League, you have to park the bus, which I don't know if I believe or love. I know that that's what people say, and I know that that's what teams do. But again, Ange does not believe that. I don't know if I believe it either. I do find that's kind of annoying. It's like, put all 8 of your guys on the back line when you have a 1-goal lead. Like, no, we shouldn't have to do that. But I think it's exposing everything that we already know to be true about this club last season and this season, is that we don't have the depth in squad to last 90 full minutes and not fall apart in some way, or not switch off in some way, not let something stupid, silly, dinky dunky like the 91st whatever minute goal happen. We're still so far away from having a deep enough squad to just be like, yeah, we can still handle running Ange's full offense for 90 plus minutes. So, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but maybe that is an area of adjustment for him, is to be like, yeah, I know you hate this, but we don't have the players for you to do this for 90 to 98 minutes every game, 50 games a year. We need more bodies. We need more health. We need more whatever. But yeah, I think that's kind of where that came in, of like, okay, whatever. The last thing I'll say on the Roma thing too was, we're all saying like 2 draws are a disaster. And I think it's because we just don't draw anymore under Ange. Like, we never draw. And it's like, I don't know, if Liverpool draws a game, they're like, cool, we got a point. They're not saying, let's burn everyone to the ground and murder everybody. They're just like, yeah, well, it was a tough one. We got a point though. Like, so we had 2 draws that, again, were winnable games. So yes, that is annoying. But I think we've gotten so used to it's either win or loss with Tottenham that we're starting to lose. Like, hey, draws still matter. It's still still progress. But yeah, it is unfortunate in the way in which we lost Roma. And I guess the performance at Fulham was not obviously inspiring in any way. But
yeah, I mean, Liverpool have 1 draw this season, and it's away to Arsenal. So I think we'd take that as well. Yeah. But that's besides the point. Yeah, it's just like, it's like, you're right about the depth. Like, we clearly don't have it right now. But what I keep coming back to is that, like, look at the lineup and look at the teams we're playing, and it's better than the teams we're playing. So at a point, Ange has to realize that we have the players to win these games. And if you're going to be stubborn about how you're playing with a lead, then we're going to keep losing these games. We took a lead in both these games. In this game twice. In Fulham, we took a lead as well. 1 goal lead each time, and we didn't hang on to a single one. 3 times we had a 1 goal lead, didn't hang on to a single one. And it's fair about the depth or whatever. People can complain about that all day, but at the end of the day, teams are doing this with injury crises all the time. I think Liverpool has an injury crisis every season, and they're playing Connor Bradley last year, and now he's turned out to be a great player this year. And it's because like their manager understands that sometimes you just need to get 3 points. And I feel like at the very least, when we are winning a game, we should be able to see it out. And I can't think of too many times in the past couple months where we've really seen out like a 1-0 or a 2-1 win, because we're just so flimsy towards the end of those.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just say this quick too. I know I said in the group chat during the Roma game, just a weird thing I noticed that like no one on our squad, when they intercept a header, heads it forward and up the pitch. And that's what that final goal ended up being, was like we headed it straight down or like to another Roma player in the box. Like Davies is the only player I've seen all season where he's heading it 10, 15 yards up the pitch. I know you can't always control that, and you're getting a ball rocketed at your face and you're just kind of doing something with it. But half of the goals we give up like this in the 91st minute are like, just clear it out of the box, and we don't. And I think that's exactly what happened on that goal. Was like, why is nobody trying to get it out of the box, or even just kick it out of bounds 100 yards in the other direction, or like do something like that? But that was another manifestation of that, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. I'm a little bit more irritated than some are, right? We could say, and I don't mean just within our group. I think just
I'm super irritated.
Supporters. Yeah, I know you are, and I'm closer to you than Robbie. Robbie, you've been very, very pragmatic about all of this, right? And Max and I are flying off the handles a little bit. But I said in the chat that I've just been trying to justify poor results for 11 years, and I'm just really tired of it. I've ran out of reasons to say things happen the way they do, but I do fully recognize that there is an injury crisis, and we're going to get to that injury list here down the line today, and it's a super long one. So that does have to be taken into effect. But the biggest thing for me is just that we're not showing up to games with the same mentality week in, week out, regardless of the opponent, right? We look at the City win, and I know that we can't just say, oh, we beat City 4-0, we should never lose again. That's not what I'm saying here, right? But there's a pattern that I've seen this season with Spurs not showing up to games that are less impactful, we could say, in the media, across the fan base, in terms of just sheer competition, right? I'm thinking of Ipswich. I'm thinking of Palace. I'm thinking of week 1 against Leicester, a newly promoted side, right? These matches that we should be winning on paper, we just look super flat in these matches. And that's my issue. It's the result coupled with just a flat performance. I do also think that a big part of it is not taking our chances. I think and systems are going to concede late goals. They're going to concede goals, especially like when you're beating a team, let's say at the 70th minute, they're going to start flying forward no matter what, right? And if we're going to continue to fly forward while they fly forward, we're going to concede goals. It's simple soccer, right? And that's where maybe some of what you're saying, Robbie, is there a more pragmatic way to close out games? The answer is probably yes, right? But will Ange do that? We don't know. That remains to be seen. I don't think so. But again, when you're beating a team late in a match, they're going to fly forward. And if you're going to fly forward, I'll say it again, you're going to concede goals, right? So we have to take our chances. We have to put ourselves in positions where we're up, 2 or 3 goals as opposed to 1 goal late in a match. And we haven't been taking our chances. We did against City, and we saw ourselves win 4-0, right? But against Roma and against Fulham, we missed opportunities to take a commanding lead on those matches. And for me, that's a mentality thing, just as much as the inability to rock up to a game against Fulham or against Ipswich or against Palace and get it done. We can do it against City for sure, right? We can rock up to those types of games with that, us against the world mentality, but we need to find a way to have that in these games we should be winning too, because the best teams in the world, they don't care if they're playing Ipswich Town or Real Madrid. They're going to go out and they're going to be confident that they're going to go smoke their opponent and execute. And I think at this level of soccer, it's not so, and I've said this before on the show, it's not like grit and determination and like, I'm going to work hard and we're going to win. It's, I'm going to be super focused and execute and play perfect soccer within the system because I'm super focused, because that's what's expected of me at the highest level of the sport across the world. And that's what we're missing at times. And that's just why I get so frustrated. So a bit of a rant here, but what I'm seeing us missing is something that's very, very much fixable regardless of who's available. And that's something for me that Ange has to figure out. And I believe in Ange. I believe in the project. I'm nowhere near thinking that we're not on the right path here, but Ange has got to quickly, in my opinion, get this mentality thing figured out, or we're going to continue to struggle like we did against Roma and Fulham this week. But yeah, let's jump to Fulham briefly. We've talked about Roma. Don't really want to talk about that bullshit anymore. Let's talk about some more bullshit.
Dude, this
Fulham.
one.
Yeah, 1-1. Spurs draw Fulham at home. Lineup here across the bottom. Max, I'll come back to you with the same question. What about that lineup stands out to you?
Oh, it was a horrible lineup. 5:26 a.m. You're checking your phone. You see that lineup. It's just a terrible way to start your day. No Kulusevski for who fucking knows why. That is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I'm actually so fired up about this. Don't fucking play him against Roma, dude. Just play him at the weekend. Madison would do fine against Roma. We created so much against Roma. And who was the best player against Roma? Kulusevski. So now he can't play on the weekend. And I know damn well, unless Kulusevski was hurt, that he would have been up for the game, because he's one of our few players that we've talked about in the past that actually get up for every game. And now that Vicario's not there, we just got a bunch of bums sitting here like, oh, we have to play Fulham. Oh, it's 1 p.m. and I have to play Fulham. And then they deliver literal horse shit. Like, that's the worst product I've seen on the pitch the entire year. Actually, Ipswich or Palace could be worse, but we literally got dominated. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, we deserved to lose that game. And then we get like a great cross and finish from Johnson. We get Matters hitting the post on like a nice idea for a free kick. There wasn't much else to be had in that game. And it was just really upsetting, especially with the lineup, especially with the fullbacks. Dude, we got to fucking rotate the fullbacks. They're playing every game. Like, I don't understand. Jed Spence hasn't got a start in the Prem this year. What am I seeing? And she's looked good every single time. They're playing every game. Kulu has to start these games. He has to start every game as far as I'm concerned. And last but not least, Son is not a 9. He is not a 9. So, yeah, and Robbie types in the chat now, he's never started in the Prem. Jed Spence. Happy 2 years at the club, bloke. Never gotten a Premier League start. Son is not a fucking 9. Get that through your head. I don't know. Start Will Lancashire. I'd rather have him on the pitch than Timo Werner. So, this game was terrible. This actually set me over the edge because Fulham is not good, and we got outclassed at home as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is no Kulusevski. We could not progress the ball up the field whatsoever in this match. We had absolutely zero ball progression, and it tells you how important Kulu has been in terms of us being able to do that. It's really concerning when you think that without one player, we're just absolutely clueless when it comes to ball progression. It's not a good place to be as a soccer team, right? So that is very, very concerning for me. But I agree with you. I would have flipped and started Madison against Roma and Kulusevski in this one in the league for sure. I just think Fulham is a better team than Roma for sure. And I think if I'm looking at those two situations, I would have made the same decision. And I also agree the fullbacks are not rotated whatsoever. There's been the least amount of rotation statistically when it comes to minutes amongst that position, which probably puts the most work in an Ange system. So it's peculiar, we could say.
And they haven't looked good. And they haven't looked good, and that's definitely because of fatigue. That's
100%. 100%. Yeah, Robbie, I'll come to you, and then we'll start to shift to big picture here. I think there's not a whole lot else we can say about Fulham. Everybody knows what that looked like, and I know you didn't get a chance to watch the match, but I'll just ask you is how much of this is on Ange Postecoglou, right? Because we can look at, and this is again going to lead us into the big picture conversation, but we can look at Ange, we can look at the players, and we can look at the board. Those are the three places I think that we can look when results don't go the correct way. So how much of this is on Ange for you?
I certainly some of it is on him. I think it's a very complicated, muddy answer between those three, like players, the board, and him. Something that like came into my mind today, and I like laughed at myself for thinking about this, but like based on the tone Ange had in the press conference, where he was kind of on the offensive and was dropping a lot of those things that I sent screenshots of. It's kind of like I'm starting to wonder, especially with Tottenham, like how many of our managers, like to use an analogy, are like you're paying for the last guy that your girlfriend dated. Like we're taking it out on him and saying like, because this club has been mismanaged for 20 years and you haven't changed it in a year and a half, it's completely on you. Like he's starting to feel it. We can tell he's starting to feel this like constant barrage of criticism of the reporters asking these just ridiculous questions or really just trying to throw him under the bus or into the mud. Like that also wears on managers, and that causes managers to either leave or flame out, which is what happened with Mourinho and Conte. Eventually they blew up because everyone was just driving all this shit at them. And again, some of it is their fault, certainly, but like, you know, the message that, you know, to not skip ahead to the next part of the pod, but like Tottenham has not been great for a very long time. Like, yes, we had that one Champions League year, but like other than that, you know, I was looking at the data. Even the year they finished second in the Prem, they had like 60 something points to take second, or wasn't it? It was something low.
86.
It was like 86, which like in any other year is like fifth place or fourth place. Like it's just a random situation.
Second place.
And again, I'm not saying that was a bad year. I'm just like, I think there's just been so many other things that have happened before Ange that still haven't changed. And that's fair that we can be upset that they haven't changed. But we're now blaming everything on him of like, we're all feeling this 20 years plus of frustration every time there's a new manager when things don't go their way. And we're just putting it back into the club again. And now what we're doing is forcing leadership to be like, should we fire Ange? And then we rinse and repeat and we start all over. We hire a new manager who hasn't changed anything. We get mad at him because it's now been 26 years or 28 years that we haven't won a trophy. And, you know, I don't know. It's just starting to it's getting a life of its own, I think, all of this, the energy that's being carried around.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good amount of information to unpack there for sure, and I think it's all well said. I do think the year Leicester won the league, I think we didn't have the greatest season, but it was just a down year across the league, right? The 86 points, I think, was uber impressive, but I also recognize that you have a perfect storm of a situation in the year we secured 86 points. You have Harry Kane coming out of the academy, who's established at this point. You have Dele Alli doing things that are absolutely unheard of and still unmatched.
Ever seen.
100%. Yeah. You've got Christian Eriksen. You've got a Moussa Dembele who, if not for injuries, would have played for Real Madrid or Barcelona easily, right? And just happened to stay healthy that season.
Literally Rodri.
100%.
He had Rodri. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe even better. And I know how crazy that sounds because Rodri just won the Ballon d'Or, but injuries kept him from starting for Real Madrid, in my opinion, 100%. And then you've got Wanyama, who paired really well with him. And then I look at Toby and Jan as two of the greatest center backs in the world at that point in time. And we just happened to sign Toby for $12 million and bring Jan up from a youngster right after we signed him. So just a total perfect storm of a situation for us to be able to do that. And I said off the air, I think that in those two seasons up through the Champions League season, Spurs overachieved in a way that the club was not ready for. And I think kind of scrambled to figure out how to handle that. Right. And that's a whole nother conversation, but I agree with you that the club has been mismanaged, and let's just jump right into the bigger picture stuff here. Right. But I think that the club has been grossly mismanaged for some time. I'm not one of these purple and gold people on Twitter saying that the club has to sell. That's not where I am. I think Levy and Enoch have done a wonderful job. When they bought Spurs, we were finishing anywhere from 10th to 15th regularly under Alan Sugar. Enoch comes in and gets us competitive for Europe within a couple of seasons, and we stayed there, right? So I respect the work that Enoch has done, but they are an organization that is looking for profitability, maybe more so than winning trophies, right? And I will say that's their prerogative. And I'm a business person, and profitability is super important to me, right? So I get all of this, but it's hard for fans to digest at times when you look at those 2 seasons we didn't buy anyone, right? But all I'm saying is I think the club has been mismanaged. I think you had to your point about the media and the barrage that Tottenham gets. Poch was a toe-the-line company guy for sure, right? He was not the type to stir things up in the press. The only time he did, he made some weird analogy about cows in a field, and everyone was just like, what in the fucking world is this guy talking about? And if you're interested, just Google something along the lines of Pochettino cows, like you'll find it. It was a really weird quote. But that's it. Yet you had Mourinho, who was ready to go to battle for Spurs against the media. I think Mourinho was the only one who did it right, personally, and I will never forgive the club for sacking him before a cup final. The biggest mistake
sacked for standing up for like football that we want, like against the Super League. Like we sacked him for that.
Yep. And Levy was just looking for a reason to sack him, and he got it, I think. And a lot of that was financial too, and that's again a whole nother conversation. But I believe that's the grossest error that Levy has made in his tenure at the club, is sacking Mourinho in the manner that he did. But I think Mourinho went to battle for the club, and then I think Conte got it dead wrong. And instead of hunkering down with his team and saying, "Fuck the media, fuck all the noise, like it's us against the world," which he could have done, he just turned his back on the board and went off, right? Which we all know the history there. So, anyways, I think the club has been mismanaged. I think now the club is trying to repair those fractures, we could say. So I'll come to you, Max. Do you think that the decision to bring in Ange and buy young and give Ange these tools to build up to something is the right move, or do you think it was just maybe another misstep in Levy's quest to do this right?
No, it's 100% the right move, and I 100% understand that this is a rebuild. But where I get hung up on this is that we are Tottenham Hotspur. This is a rebuild. Even in our rebuilds, we should be beating all these teams that we're not beating. That's just what we are. We are Tottenham Hotspur. We are a Big Six club. We are one of the best teams in England, and we have been since we were created as a club. We should be beating these teams every single year, regardless of whether we're rebuilding or not, because our players are better than them. Our manager should be better than them, although at some points it looks like he's getting outcoached. But I believe in the process, but I also believe that we need to see results against teams that we are worse than, because this is like clearly a mentality problem, and a mentality problem doesn't just change overnight. Like if this is truly like a systemic, like mental problem that our players have, then it falls on the manager. Like I remember when Ange first joined the club, how many videos did we see? Oh, this is him coaching at Australia. He's really getting at his players in the locker room. Look at how furious he is. Like, this is such a motivational locker room guy that we have here. Where is it? I remember last year even, we would be down at halftime, and it's like, oh, Ange is going to rip into these guys at halftime. We're going to come back. Where is it? We look complacent. And Ange in these press conferences, I'm frankly sick of it. I'm sick and tired of like, oh, woe is me. Like, I'm just trying to play entertaining football. Haha. Like dissing the press for asking, like, why can't you beat Fulham when you beat Man City? Answer the damn question, man. Like, I don't understand. Like, this isn't a club where you should just be let off the hook for not beating teams that you're worse than. These are valid questions, and you can't just say, oh, we just play entertaining football. This is what I do. And that whatever happens on the field, that's up to the players. We need to he needs to take responsibility and be like, maybe I have to change something so we can get these results because these are winnable games. But at the end of the day, I support Ange. I support his project. But I also know that I can't discredit any fans that are upset with us losing to Ipswich, Palace, Brighton, tying Fulham, tying Roma, losing to Galatasaray. These are teams that throughout the history of the club, we should be beating. And I think Poch showed us that. And I think rather than Poch's tenure being a sort of fantasy for Spurs fans or something that was just a stroke of luck or a perfect storm, that should be our expectation as a club. Because in the early 2000s, late 90s, yes, Tottenham Hotspur wasn't the best. But before that, in the 60 years before that, we amounted to a top 5 club in trophies in Europe. And then Man City have come in now and won a bunch of trophies. But we were not in Europe, in England. We were a top 5 club in England. During that time, we had a bad stretch in the early 2000s leading into the Poch era where we were consistently in the Champions League. We were fighting for league titles. We made a Champions League final. We didn't get a trophy there, so it looks worse in hindsight, I guess. But we were genuinely one of the best teams in Europe again, and now we've had maybe like a 5-year blip. And I don't want to keep treating us like we're a mid-table side because we're Tottenham, and I can't fault the fans for saying we're Tottenham, so we need to win these games because it will make the board understand that and have more ambition. I hope it makes Ange understand that this isn't a place where you can just repeatedly fail. Although I don't want him sacked, he has to show us something soon at this point. He can't just hang on the coattails of big wins against good teams when you're losing or drawing every game against an inferior opponent. So that's kind of where I stand. But I am obviously Ange in. I'm a huge supporter. I just think that regardless of that, we should be winning all these games against inferior opponents.
Yeah, Robbie, as we said earlier, Max and I both feel that you've taken a good pragmatic approach to the situation, which I have a ton of respect for. There's times where I wish I felt more pragmatic than I do, right? So I'll pass the mic over to you, talk me through where you stand after everything you just heard Max say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with a ton of what he's saying. It's losing the bad games is definitely painful. That's annoying and upsetting. I think, again, I don't know if it's just recency bias or what, but it's hard to think about now. The Poch era ended, 5 years ago now? It's been 5 years, right? Yeah. It's been a very long time since that era ended. And even his last couple months was pretty dramatic and terrible. So it's been a minute since all that's happened. And as you alluded to earlier, the change into Mourinho and to Conte, we still didn't really fix any of the problems. We just said, hey, throw a new manager on it. Maybe trying to find, I think Mourinho was trying to replicate Poch in the sense that he could get more out of less, was kind of maybe a Mourinho desire of hiring him. But yeah, no, I mean, it's absolutely frustrating where we're at. But in the world of teams, again, Tottenham has a ton of money. We know that. But there are still clubs that are spending so much more money than them. From a talent perspective, we've chosen this path of doing the youngster thing, paying less money for players. That's great, but that takes a lot longer to turn things around when you do that. And, you can't just spend 200 million in a window and buy 6 guys that are immediate starters. You can, but we've chosen not to do that. And I don't think a team has done that in a long time where you got 5 players in a single window that were immediate contributors or whatever. I mean, we tried to, I think, and bought a lot of people that ended up being terrible, but, it takes a long, long time. I agree with Max. We need to start seeing something. That being said, if we want to keep using the Poch era as an example, he didn't win a single trophy. He won nothing. So what is the difference at this point? Is if it seems at this point with Tottenham, we haven't won a trophy in 20 whatever years, or not 20, but 15 years or so. The measurement of success at this point seems to be trophy. I think that's where fans are pulling their hair out. Please, can we win a trophy? we're still alive in every trophy competition we're in this year, which is different than last year. So progress, maybe, I don't know. Like there's something to be said about that. We're making some progress there. Again, and I said this in the chat, if we get eliminated by United, if we lose to fucking Tamworth, like this conversation gets immediately different. But like right now, we are still alive for every trophy we're in competition for. We're even still alive for the Prem. We know that's not going to happen, but we're alive for the Prem. We're like 3 wins out of being in second. 2 wins out of second, I think, right now. Maybe 3 after yesterday's result. I wasn't doing the math, but like we're still very much alive for a lot of things. And yes, it is ugly and it is a very terrible season. But until we cross the bridge of getting eliminated from those competitions, that's probably when I'll get upset. I was like, okay, we've been eliminated from every cup this year, with not even getting to the final. Or, if we, like I said, if we lose to Tamworth, oh boy, maybe that's when all heads will roll. Which again, I hope that doesn't happen. There's no way that can happen, right? Right, guys? There's no way that can happen, right? there's no way we can lose to Tamworth, right?
I believe the 5th.
We lost to Colchester.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Again, like absolutely everything Max said is very valid. Like we're allowed to be frustrated by all this stuff, but I guess the question is, what is our measurement of success? I think we've talked about this in an earlier pod. Is winning the Prem, or is winning any trophy, or is being top 4? Or, like what is the measurement of success? It feels like to me as a club, we've transitioned to just win a fucking trophy as our measurement of success because it's been so long, and we're still there. We're still in the conversation for winning a trophy this year. And until that changes, I'm not pulling alarm bells yet. Again, maybe the Premier League is what needs to suffer for that to happen. Maybe we win a random Carabao Cup or whatever, but yeah, we get 13 losses in the Prem or, whatever it's going to end up being. I think that's okay. But yeah, I guess maybe we just need to understand like what is our expectation? Is it to be good at everything? If so, that's going to take a long time. We're still very early on in that process. So I guess I don't have an answer of what my level of expectation is, but I think the fan base has gotten to the point of like, let's just win a trophy. And to that answer is we're still alive. So
yeah.
I mean, we're 3 wins away from the League Cup. I'll go ahead, Max.
I want to win a trophy, and that would definitely like excuse everything that happens. But I also can't just sit here and like we have to evaluate the club at its current point right now. And I'm totally okay with telling like players, managers, owners, whoever it may be, at this current moment, it's not good enough. And I can amend that statement if we win a trophy. But right now, by the looks of it, we're not going to touch a trophy. We're way too inconsistent. And I talked about this a little bit in the group chat. And I think, Scott, you should add on to this with your take. But the amount of like lapses that we have that lasts for a full 90 minutes where we just switch off and we have to play knockout football and we have to play Europa League knockout football, which is 2 legs. We can't do that. It is like knockout football. You can't make mistakes. That's not how it works. And that's just not what we're looking like as a team. It seems like we're so susceptible to having, the bad game. It's a bad game. When we're playing in the knockouts, a bad game and your season's over. And then we're staring at the league like, we've already lost 10 league games now. And then the season's an absolute disaster. And that's where it could get really dicey for Ange. If we put all this energy into a trophy and then the players still don't get up for the game, or they write off a team from Hungary in the knockout stages and then we lose like we did in Croatia back during Mourinho's era, then we're staring at 9th place in the league and no trophies. And like, what are you going to do? Say, Ange, let's run it back. Like, I don't know. It just gets really hard at that point. But obviously these are all hypotheticals, but with the current state of our form and the lack of consistency, it's just really concerning for the long term. So yeah, Scott, what do you think about that?
I mean, if I was asked right now at this moment today, do I think Spurs will win the Europa League? I would say absolutely not. It'd be a resounding no, because I just don't believe we have the consistency to get through, like you said, the knockouts, which let's say hypothetically we don't finish top 8, which is very much on the table at this point in time. We sit in 9th, so finishing in the top 8 is also very much on the table. It could go either way, right? But if we don't, we're talking 2 matches in the round of 32, 2 matches in the round of 16, 2 matches in the quarters, 2 matches in the semis, and a final. That's 11 matches. Do I think Spurs can stay dialed in for 11 matches? Fuck no, not even fucking close. And that's my concern, right? The League Cup, maybe we can go out and dabble and get 3 wins. I think it's possible. But if we finish,
but isn't the League Cup semifinal also 2-legged?
Oh, it is. Thank you. It is.
Yeah.
So there's an extra match in there, which maybe is beneficial, maybe not. I don't know.
Depends who you play, I think.
Yeah, agreed. But I'll just say if we, and again, I don't think this will happen, but if we finish outside of Europe and don't win anything, I think it looks pretty bleak for Ange Postecoglou, and I hope that doesn't happen. I think this is worth talking about. Last year, we finished with 66 points in Ange's first full season. Almost half of those came in the first 9 matches, and then it got really bad. Those final 19 matches were not good for Ange Postecoglou, and you can make the argument that has kind of carried into this season when you talk about the up and down nature of what happened in the final. Again, 19 matches of last year. Sorry, 29 matches. Yes, 29 matches, right? Not 19. I'm doing myself a disservice there, but it was up and down. We're talking about, again, last season in those final 29 matches, only taking 36 points, I believe, if my math is correct, from 29 matches, which is like maybe relegation, right? If you want to talk about that. So again, it hasn't been great, and we do need to see some sort of progress in order for Ange to have some of the heat pulled off of him. Because, and again, I'm not taking a shot at anyone who is taking this pragmatic approach, but I guess the things that I'm hearing about why we drop points to Fulham and why we drop points to Palace, those don't last forever, right? Those things can only be applicable for so long, especially when you're a club who's desperate to take the next step and get over that hump like we are as an organization. But then you look at the fact that everyone we've brought in is young, except Solanke, right? A bunch of teenagers. Like there's no argument that what we're building is for 3 years from now, right? So like, I also don't think we can get upset that it's not happening right away. But for me, it's all about just the eye test and the inconsistency that I'm seeing as I watch matches. That's frustrating, right? It's not that we're not expediting the project. It's not that I don't believe that things are going in the right direction, but it's just also hard for me to say, who cares that we drop points against a team we should never be dropping points against, because we'll get there eventually. That's my concern. Is I need to see proof that we will get there eventually. And sometimes I'm starting to wonder like why I'm not seeing more objective data to tell me that we're heading in the right direction because of that inconsistency. So yeah, I don't know. A lot. I just said a lot there. But.
The 2024 annual Premier League table, Tottenham, like for the calendar year, Tottenham's played 31 games, 14 wins, 5 draws, 12 losses, 47 points.
It's really not.
That's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I don't care what the players are. It's not good enough. We have good enough players to do better than that. We're 100%. Underneath. We're underneath Manchester United. We're underneath Newcastle. We're 2 points ahead of Villa, 5 points ahead of Fulham. We're only 6 points ahead of Bournemouth, Brighton, and Brentford.
I mean, when you look at Pedro Porro and Christian Romero and Mickey Van de Ven, Destiny Udogie at times, then I start talking about Heung-min Son, Dom Solanke, Dejan Kulusevski, James Maddison. These are not just run-of-the-mill average footballers, right? These are guys who are very talented and should be enough to compete at the level that we want to compete at, right? So, I know Odegaard is young, never even plays. I know Sarr's young. I know that we have Timo Werner, who's shaky. I know that Brennan Johnson is young, but we do have a lot of really, I would say, star-studded talent. throughout the ranks too. And that's, again, another part of my frustration is we are good enough to be winning these matches. I know that there's depth issues. I know there's injury issues. Every team has them, as you said, Max. Let's pull up our injury list here. It is pretty nasty, and all credit to Ange Postecoglou, right? Solanke's out ill, and we expect that to change quickly. We expect he'll be back soon. Mikey Moore's out ill. Another couple weeks, it looks like, from the things that we're hearing. That's concerning. Not quite sure what the deal is, right? But we know he's ill. Odebear's out with the hamstring, as we talked about ad nauseum. We've got Richarlison out with the calf. Romero out with the strained toe ligament, it sounds like, which is not something that you hear often, right? Van de Ven with the hamstring. We can say that that's going to be probably a consistent thing as Mickey Van de Ven continues to play for Spurs. It seems like he maybe has a bit of a hamstring thing going on. Vicario with the fractured ankle, as we've all talked about, and then Bentancur suspended. So that's a long list of really important players that are out right now. Ange came out in a presser and said, I hear a lot of violins being played over, one center back not available for all these teams across the Prem. Well, I've got both of my class center backs unavailable right now. And I do appreciate him saying he's proud of the boys who have hunkered down and continue to press on, right? So, but that's a long list of talent that's unavailable to us. And as much as I'm frustrated, I think those things do have to be factored in. But I will also say the modern game is not changing, and this is going to continue to be an issue. Footballers will get injured. It's just the nature of the sport, right? No other sport do you run 8 miles in a performance, right? So these things are going to happen, and the club has to be more braced for these types of injury crises to come through the flanks, because we don't have the ranks to deal with it either. And I think that has to be said.
And Ange, at the end of the window, he was like, nah, we're all set. We're all good. I don't know if that was a message from the board, but he's like, nope, we're good. I got the guys I wanted, Odebear, Archie Gray. They're going to be big parts. Obviously, Odebear injured. Bergvall, I guess, has been a disappointment that maybe we didn't account for. But he said he was okay with the window. He was happy with the window and the players that we got. Clearly, it wasn't enough. But also, yeah, I guess none of our fullbacks have gotten injured, but there's also some rotation that could have been made there with Jed Spence that we've mentioned before. I just think that, I don't know, I sound like a broken record. I just think regardless of the injury crisis, it's just repeated losses to inferior opponents that are just not acceptable at this point. We can't go from a week losing to Galatasaray and Ipswich, international break. We beat City, best win ever, and then just draw Roma and Fulham. That's not what should be happening here, regardless of the injuries. Because I think Davies and Dragusin have done an adequate job from center back, and I don't think that is necessarily the reason that we've been losing games at all. So. Yeah.
No, I don't blame the defending. I mean, maybe late in games, but I think our lack of finishing has been the bigger issue. Robbie, when Ange comes out at the end of the window and says we're good, our squad's where it needs to be, is that just coach speak, or is that more so that Ange is a uber pragmatic guy who wants to believe in his guys and truly believes that he had everything he needed?
I don't know. I think it's more him. I mean, I'm just staring at the injury list, and it's yeah, we're good. We've lost 9 players. Should we have signed 9 more players? I don't know what the solve there is. Yeah, we were good. I mean, arguably left back. We'll say that forever. Still needed another left back, or just let Sergio Reguilon play. Is he really that terrible? I don't know. But hey, he's a body. All right. But yeah, I don't know. We get all of this talk. This is a total change of subject. We get all this talk about Tottenham having the best training facility in the world. Why do we get injured more than anybody else? This is not an Ange thing. This happened under Mourinho. This happened under Conte, and it's always hamstring and calf, or I guess Harry Kane was ankle. What is going on? Why is this? I know other clubs get hurt too, but maybe I have tunnel vision, but it seems like we have way more injuries on stuff like that. That is lingering stuff. Not just oh, I broke a bone, I'm back. It's my hamstring is torn and now it's healed, but now it's going to get pulled again, and then it's going to heal, and then it's get pulled. I don't know if there's I know we fired the whole staff this summer or whatever. We like brought in a bunch of new people, or not the whole staff, but a lot of the different training staff was changed out. But I don't know when this is going to end. We're always injured. Like, I don't know what that is and who's to blame for that. But
yeah, my take on why we are always more injured than other teams is because I believe, again, this is just my opinion, that we're the only club who consistently competes in Europe and 3 domestic competitions that doesn't spend in the manner that's required to compete on that front, right? We are very hesitant to make any signing that could potentially lead to a loss from a profitability standpoint. We also have absolutely no fucking clue as to when a player should be moved on. We are the worst club in England's, we'll say, the top 4 divisions when it comes to moving on players. Maybe the worst club in Europe, right? I know that's a pretty heavy thing to say, but we really struggle with moving players on at the right time. Son probably could have been sold for $100 million at some point, in the not so distant past. Who knows if that could have been a solid investment for the future of the organization, right? That's just one example, but we really struggle when it comes to moving players on. And I think that bleeds into fear in the transfer market and analysis paralysis and overthinking and overanalyzing everything that we want to do in the market. And we just don't spend enough, in my opinion, to have the depth required because we don't want to take losses. And we're fearful that these players we need to bring in for the depth or for that, to solve that depth issue won't turn into a good business decision on the back end. And I think that's why we're injured more than any other club, because I look at City, I look at Liverpool, I look at Arsenal. Arsenal is pretty depleted right now, so I maybe don't put them into that category, but most of the time these other big 6 clubs are well equipped for injury crises, and I don't think Spurs ever have been.
Yeah. I think, just quickly, it also just speaks to, and this is being fixed and addressed, but like the academy was so garbage for 5+ years that there wasn't even anyone to pull up. And then that was the whole talking point about the Fulham match, was we had 7+ players on the bench that had never spent a minute in the Premier League. And the guys again, I'm not excusing this, but there was a stat, I don't remember what it was, but they were suggesting that people on Fulham's bench had like hundreds of games of Premier League experience or something. And it was like these guys versus like who you bringing on the 80th minute versus us. And then obviously we rested Kulusevski, so that would have changed the metric a little bit. But it was just there wasn't any options. And our academy is better than it was. Certainly, there's a lot of promising stuff, but it was dark for quite some time. And I think that's also another reason why we've been thin, is we just had a bad academy that wasn't worth bringing anybody up. But we're fixing that, I think. So.
Yeah. The subs in the Fulham game were atrocious, by the way. I'm sorry. Kulu, like 70th minute, right after we concede. Like, why are we waiting to concede our 1-0 lead before we sub on our best player? In my opinion, should have been on at halftime if you're trying to give him a rest or whatever. And then after that, not to sub until the 85th minute. Are you joking? Bring Will Lancashire on in the 70th. What's the worst that can happen? Yeah. Like, that's a joke that we didn't bring on Will Lancashire till Archie Gray, who subbed on in the 85th, got injured 5 minutes later. Like, come on, man. It's just stuff like that is like Will Lancashire is not going to lose you the game, but he could win it for you. And Lucas Bergvall, same. That's just what I think. Give the boys a shot. Like, I don't know. It was just strange. It was clear that we were fatigued. We needed to spark, and we got Kulu on, and then you wait like 15 minutes for your next sub, 20 minutes. It's really weird.
The only thing
especially when it's level.
Yeah, the only thing I might disagree with a little bit is I wasn't a fan of the Bergvall sub for Madison.
I wouldn't have taken off Madison personally.
Yeah,
I would have taken off.
Go ahead.
Let me wait. I keep forgetting what the exact changes were. I would have taken off Sarr probably, but
and there's probably something to that. I just think that it's probably more so taking off Madison that I have a qualm with than actually bringing Bergvall on. But Bergvall for Madison, for me, when you need a goal late in a match, like, I'm sorry, I love Bergvall, I really do, and I believe that he's going to have a really promising career. But when it comes to what he offers versus Madison, it's like not even remotely comparable, right?
Yeah, so the subs are just off. I completely agree with you on that point. Yeah, you shouldn't be taking James Madison off there. If you need to take Brennan Johnson off and then shift Kulu to the wing or whatever you need to do, shift Matters to the left or just get players on that can make an impact, because I don't trust Timo or Brennan to get a late, I don't know. I just don't think they're very good when we're chasing a game because of like when they're trying to like defend lower block or whatever it may be. But we just need fresh legs on, and like you said, but we also have to recognize which players are going to actually win us the game. And James Madison is one of those players that only needs a half chance. So completely agree. And that's just on Ange, and his substitutions have been a problem for his entire tenure here. So
and he also lets his tactics dictate his substitutions, in my opinion. There's no reason you can't flex your tactics and get all these guys on the field, right?
Exactly.
Instead of making these like for like subs that he always does. So it's like overbelief in his system at times, where sometimes just swallow your pride, bro, and change up the tactics a little bit and try to get 3 points, right? At some point we balanced project progression versus points, and like it's a very delicate balance, but points are really important right now. So anyways, let's move on to the next topic we want to discuss here, and that's transfer links. We're talking about depth. We're talking about bolstering the ranks and how desperately important that is for Spurs. There's a lot of links out there. I actually sat down and did a little bit of research today. I had some time. There's some interesting links, and these are all just links, right? So I'm not gonna try to rue the listener into believing these are all happening, but links are important. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? First is Johnny Cardoso, CDM from Real Betis. That one is very interesting because we own equity in him, right? We've talked about this on the show. It's a very weird situation, but in order to get Giovanni Lo Celso down to Betis, we essentially bought a future stake in Cardoso, meaning we either get him at a discount or receive a portion of any transfer to another club. I believe a significant portion of like 20% or something like that. So, or maybe even more than that. It could be like, I don't know. Don't quote me on any of this, but I believe it's 20% of any future sell-on clause. But anyways, if we buy him, we get a super heavy discount on that purchase point. So I think there's a lot of smoke with that fire, right? In terms of Johnny Cardoso, Malik Tillman, that came out today, $20 million price tag, American attacking midfielder from PSV. I tend to agree with you, Max. For those who are maybe just listening, Max gave the thumbs down. I think he's an okay player. Certainly believe in him because he's an American and I want him to do well for the U.S. national team. But I don't think he turns the dial in the manner that Spurs require right now. Max, you want to talk about your thumbs down there?
Yeah, just don't think he's Tottenham quality. Like, I think he'd be great in like a Fulham side. He'd be a really good player for them. He'd be a good player for like Brentford or someone, but he's not this level. Like he hardly starts for the US national team. So I'm a fan of him. Bayern Academy, like you just got to get the foundation, but not good enough just yet. And we're targeting a lot of Americans. Like Johnny Cardoso is legit. Like he may not be starting right now for Poch, or I don't know if he was injured or something recently, but he's looked really good in La Liga, and everyone there like really rates him highly. So that's one I'm excited about. Plus, I think it's inevitable that I think I'm treating him like he's already a Tottenham player. So I'm got to get excited about him. And then we can continue on down the list. Angel Gomez, or is it Angel?
Yeah, I believe it's Angel Gomez, Man United product, who they sold to Lille.
Yeah, he's class. He's not like the biggest. I think that's like the one qualm in the middle there, but I think what?
His body's like Sarr. I think it's comparable to the profile of Sarr.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we paired him with Sarr, I think that would be really interesting. Mm-hmm. I think he could be more in like a double pivot rather than in like that 3, but like he's just a really good player. He's been getting England call-ups recently, so I'm a big fan. Then we've got Ivan Toney on here. That ship's just sailed for me. I prefer someone else. And then Anthony Patterson, Sunderland goalkeeper. I mean, at this point, I'll take any goalkeeper that can like stand in there. Forster has actually been pretty good, I think, since we haven't won since he's played, but I think he's been honestly decent. But obviously, want rotation there, just options. And then Omar Marmoush from Frankfurt. I don't think we'll get him. I don't think we have the facilities because he's genuinely probably going to like Liverpool or like Real Madrid. But if we did, that would be Titanic. Like this guy is like one of those players that like if we have him on the wing, oh my days, like that changes the entire conception of the team. So
I also think Richarlison's days are quite numbered at the club.
I think Richarlison's dead weight. Like me and Chang talk about, like we're talking Sounders' future plans after our heartbreaking loss to Galaxy, and like we're just talking Richarlison, man. Like we're really excited for him to pop up Club World Cup in June, maybe grab a couple against Madrid for Seattle. So we're excited about bringing him in January.
Hey man, stranger things have happened. And yeah, rounding out the list is Abdulkadir Kusanov. I'm not pronouncing that correctly at all.
I have no idea who this is. So
Abdulkadir, if you're listening, I apologize for saying your name incorrectly. But center back from Lens, don't know anything about him, but it's an interesting link to a center back. Robbie, any of these names jump off the list? Anyone you want to elaborate on?
I mean, goalie is top of my list. Again, I don't hate Fraser Forster, but he's not the guy. He can play a few games a year. Clearly not the guy. I saw a few banter posts about the Sunderland guy on Twitter this morning, suggesting that like apparently Sunderland's in a very strong promotion bid or something right now. So like them letting him go would kind of be a big deal for them, and maybe they won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know pretty much any of these other guys. And I agree on Tony. Like he's done for me. Too late for that. I agree on Richarlison. Very unfortunate because I love his vibes. I love his energy. But maybe 5 months ago, I was already out on him. I was just like, he's never going to be healthy. And so, I'm very much out on him. So I don't know what the striker market looks like, or would we go another big gun to go with Dom, or are we still trying to develop a younger, different profile underneath him? I don't know.
Scarlett's been really good.
Scarlett. I mean, the potential for Valise, we don't know. Who knows on that one?
I'll say it right now. He's horrible. If Alejo Valise if he scores another goal for Tottenham, I'll be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I think Dane Scarlett resurgence, man. He scored like 5 goals in his last 7. I think it's actually awesome. You love to see it.
It's good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dane's, and I hope he does well. I'd love to see him get significant minutes for Spurs. But I think the most interesting thing about all of this is we're heavily linked to a striker, which tells you everything you need to know. With Richarlison, I think, as we've talked about, heavily linked to defensive midfielders, which is kind of surprising, maybe. I don't think that we're lacking as much depth there, and obviously Bentancur's out for 6 more matches in the Prem, but that's only 6 more matches. So the Cardoso and the Angel Gomez links are kind of interesting to me. I can see Cardoso being a little bit more tangible because, again, financially it makes more sense, right? I love Angel Gomez 100%. Then I think the one thing that's interesting to me is I'm not seeing any links to fullbacks. I think that can be error on the club's part. I think that can also mean that we do firmly believe in Jed Spence and Archie Gray as long-term options there. I'd like to see Archie Gray as more of a long-term option in the center of the park, but maybe we believe that Jed Spence and Archie Gray are suitable for the foreseeable future, which begs the question, where is Jed Spence and why is he not getting minutes? But I do think it's very interesting that we're not linked to fullbacks. And, as you mentioned earlier, Robbie, left back is one that we would all prioritize quite heavily right next to goalkeeper. In my opinion, it not only gives Udogie rest, but it gets Gray back into the center of the park, which is where I think, again, he needs to be long-term. So we'll see. Obviously, a lot of links. There's going to be more links that come through the pipeline. It's only December 2nd now, so we've got another 29 days until the window opens. So a lot of heat's coming through for sure. And we'll talk about more names. Anybody on the list anyone not on the list that you guys want to talk about?
We can talk about James Trafford. I talked about him in the offseason a lot, about a potential goalkeeper, keeper for Burnley, previously of Manchester City. Just a young, good keeper. I don't know. Never can have too many of those. You see, like, the blueprint with Kelleher in Liverpool. Like, he's been their backup keeper for like 5 years now, and he pops up. He plays every cup game. Klopp always backed him all the way through those league cups, and he won them a lot of multiple league cups as their keeper. And now he's playing with Alisson injured, and they're gonna sell. They got Scott. You know how to pronounce his name because he's from Italy. But the keeper from Georgia, coming in, and they're gonna sell Kelleher for $50 million. And like that, I think that's incredible. That's how you really develop a keeper. So I would like to see, I don't know, us sign a younger keeper, or like what does it take for Brandon Austin to get an appearance? Like, this dude's been our third screen keeper for like 4 years now. I'm just curious to see what happens, but evidently he's not that good if Forrester's getting the start. And then the second thing, on the center mid part, on the 6 position that we're linked to, I think Bentancur and Basuma, I think they both still have 1 year after that. Like, they still have next year, 25, 26 left on their contract. And then the summer after this one, I think it expires. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe one of them, if we bring in another 6, maybe one of them goes this summer, and then we have one of them, Gray, maybe Johnny, and then we work with that trio throughout that year, and then at the end of the contract they go, and then we go forward with like Gray and Johnny as our 2 6s, which I think at that point would be really strong. So I think that's kind of the plan, like, especially with the investment in Johnny. I think him and Archie Gray are like our plan at 6 for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think it's definitely a good succession plan to Basuma and Bentancur, who I think are fine, but I think, could be better.
I think Gray. I think we all agree Gray could be like a lot better than both of them at his point.
Gray will be world class someday. You don't spend $40 million on an 18-year-old, right? If you don't believe that they're the real deal. And a lot of teams across England did. So, yeah, well said. I like both those links. I like the Trafford link to you. I think not only having a great backup keeper, but someone to compete with Vicario, especially. We know he lacks in a few key areas, right? So I think having somebody who could hypothetically be a little bit more stronger when it comes to set pieces would be a good competition for Vicario. It might light a fire under his ass too when it comes to improving there. So we'll see. Last thing we want to talk about before we wrap here, we appreciate everybody who's hung around for the hour, is the Spurs are drawn away to Tamsworth FC out of the National League. That is the 5th division in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. I did not even know the FA Cup draw was happening today, so that tells you everything you need to know.
Casual.
Yeah, just I know, right? Tamsworth FC, never heard of them. I said in another group chat, I think we got drawn against a fake football team, but after doing research, they are a real team. I saw a video come out where they were all super hyped up that they drew Tottenham at home in the FA Cup. And it was like super cool and heartwarming. My friend in another group chat, Caroline, shout to Caroline, said super heartwarming until you get to the end and they start chanting Tottenham get battered everywhere they go in this room that they're all celebrating in. So we might just have to take it to Tamsworth. But like we all said earlier, shouldn't even say it. Who knows? We could show up and to rock up to Tamsworth and not be mentally prepared to square off against a team out of the 5th division. So I'll hope that doesn't happen. I do hope that this gives Ange Postecoglou, in all seriousness, let me stop bantering the club for a second. I think this does give Ange Postecoglou an interesting opportunity to heavily rotate his side. as you said it earlier in the group chat, Max, play the U18s, right?
Yeah,
and
genuinely. I think Ola Cisse should play, Tyrese Hall should play, Luka Williams-Barnett should play, Malachi Hardy, Dorrington. Just fucking put them all out there. That's kind of what we did-ish against Marine. I remember Alfie Devine bagged a goal in that game, and that was, 3 years ago now, and Devine's still a teenager. So that's how hard we were rotating for them, and yeah, I'm super pumped. Like, I'm just so glad we drew a team that we can actually like show the youngsters off and they can get some like first team recognition and kind of be more introduced to the fan base. Because we've seen them on the bench lately with all the injuries, but I would like to see like these guys really like getting watched by everyone, which will be super exciting.
Yep. Yeah, well said. Yeah, super exciting. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up here. Spurs next match is on Thursday as we travel to Bournemouth. That's a dicey one for me. Bournemouth is flying right now. They look really, really good, and they're all gas, no break. But they're pretty steady at the back too. Kluivert and Evan Nielsen are both scoring goals for fun. It's going to be a dicey one. But we'll be back next weekend to talk about that match plus the forthcoming match over the weekend. For myself, for Robbie, for Max, for everyone at Emerald.
We also got Chelsea next week. Yeah.
Oh, and thank you. And we do play Chelsea on Sunday. So
prediction time.
I mean, do we want to say we lose to Bournemouth and then smoke Chelsea? Because that's the way
we're not. I genuinely pray that we beat Bournemouth because we're not beating Chelsea. And if I honestly think we might draw Bournemouth and lose to Chelsea, and then it's going to be really interesting.
I'd say 3-2 Bournemouth, and they score one in like the 97th minute to make it 3-2 and make us still sweat our fucking balls off because it's never easy. So it's going to be one of those.
I'll take a hard win. That's fine. Yeah, I'm a little less optimistic, right? But hey, I said we were going to get battered by City, and we won 4-0. So I'm just going to come out and say we get smoked by Bournemouth and we get smoked by Chelsea, and hope that the opposite happens.
I think that we're genuinely getting smoked by Chelsea, though. Like, they're actually good. Yeah, they're low key in the title race.
100%. Enzo Maresco's done a really nice job, and everybody was slandering the club for sacking Poch and bringing in Enzo, but it looks like they maybe were onto something. So
these Pep disciples, bro.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. All right, well, yeah, that's going to do it for us here, episode 27 of Emerald and Lilywhite. Again, for myself, you can find me at Scott G. Bird. You can find Robbie at Robbie_Light and Robbie Light on Twitter. Asterisk there. You can find Max at Going Limbs. You can find us at and Lilywhite on all social media platforms. Most importantly, you can follow Seattle Spurs at Seattle Spurs on all platforms. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. Make sure you sign up to the Gmail at Seattle Spurs. It is seattlespurs@gmail.com. You will automatically get all sorts of updates when it comes to match viewings, match schedules, all things Tottenham will come through your email if you do sign up for that. So be sure to sign up. Also get down to our two respective pubs, or our three rather, for the time being, our three homes. Up north in Finney Ridge, the Seattle crew meets at the Wits End, again in Finney Ridge. And then down south, we have two locations in Puyallup. It's Rainier Growlers and Cascades. Cascades will be the permanent home. Rainier Growlers is picking up the slack for the next 30 days or so. So get down to one of those bars depending on where you're at in the Seattle Metro on the north or the south side of the Sound. Watch Spurs with your the good folks of Seattle Spurs and make some new friends along the way. It's how this podcast was born. So you never know who you come across. Get down to the pub, support the Seattle Spurs group, tip your bartenders. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.